Imagine being able to win friends and influence people in a way that builds trust, strengthens relationships, and benefits everyone involved. Most people think influence comes from being the smartest person in the room. You know the type, always ready with the perfect answer, constantly sharing their accomplishments, dominating every conversation. In his book titled How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie discovered that the most influential people rarely talk about themselves. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 counterintuitive principles that separate true influencers from everyone else. Rule 3. Stop trying to be interesting. Be interested instead. Your brain defaults to self-promotion in professional settings. LinkedIn posts about your achievements. Networking events where you pitch your experience. Sales calls where you talk about your solutions. The problem? People tune out the moment you start talking about yourself, even if your accomplishments are genuinely impressive. Carnegie tells this story about a botanist. The author spent an entire evening listening to this guy talk about exotic plants and laboratory experiments, said almost nothing himself. At the end of the night, the botanist told the host what a fascinating conversationalist Carnegie was. But here's the thing, Carnegie barely spoke. He just listened with genuine interest. Here's the psychological principle. People care about their own problems, not your solutions. It's like trying to catch fish with cheesecake. You like cheesecake, so you put it on the hook. But the fish wants a worm. Why do you treat people any differently? Think about your last team meeting. How much time did you spend talking about your updates versus asking what's blocking other people? In client calls, do you spend the first 10 minutes understanding their goals, or do you jump straight into your pitch? On LinkedIn, are you commenting on other people's challenges, or just broadcasting your own content? The cost of getting this wrong is massive. When you lead with your agenda, people mentally check out. They're not thinking about what you're saying. They're waiting for their turn to talk, or they're planning their next meeting, or they're just tuning out completely. Here's how this works in modern work. In remote team meetings, start with what's blocking you before you share any updates. On client calls, research their recent posts and ask about specific challenges they've mentioned. When you reach out on LinkedIn, reference something they actually said, not some generic "great to meet you" message. The common mistake? Asking surface questions, then immediately pivoting to your agenda. How's your quarter going? Great! So anyway, here's what I wanted to talk about. That's not being interested. That's checking a box before you sell. Try the 80-20 rule for conversations. Listen 80% of the time. Ask follow-up questions the other 20%. Actually, follow up on what they said, not just waiting for them to finish so you can talk. Here's a quick win you can try today. In your next meeting, count how many times you say I versus you. Most people have that ratio completely backward. They say, I think, I believe, I accomplished way more than you mentioned. You're dealing with you need. Flip that ratio. Make it about them. Being interested builds trust. But trust alone doesn't create influence. You need the second rule. Rule 2. Never say you're wrong even when they are. Your instinct in disagreements is to prove you're right. Someone says something incorrect in a meeting and your hand shoots up. A client has the wrong idea about your product and you immediately correct them. A team member's approach won't work and you tell them exactly why. Every single time you do this, you're attacking their self-esteem. And when you attack someone's self-esteem, they don't think, oh, I should reconsider my position. They dig in harder. They defend their belief to the death, even when they know deep down they might be wrong. Carnegie tells this story about an interior decorator. A friend hired this decorator to make curtains for his home. When the bill came, it was enormous. The friend mentioned the price to someone who immediately said he'd been ripped off. What happened? The friend defended the decorator, explained how the high price meant quality, and justified the whole thing. But then another friend came over and started praising the curtains. Suddenly, the friend admitted he actually felt he'd overpaid and regretted the purchase. Same person, same curtains, same price. The difference? One approach triggered defense, the other created space for honesty. Here's what happens in your workplace. You're in a strategy meeting. Someone proposes an approach that you know won't work based on past experience. You say, that won't work because, and list all the reasons. What does that person hear? You're stupid. You didn't think this through. I'm smarter than you. They're not going to thank you for the insight. They're going to find every possible exception, every edge case, every reason why this time is different. You've just guaranteed they'll fight harder for their bad idea than they would have if you'd kept quiet. So, how do you disagree without triggering that defense? In sales, when someone raises an objection, don't counter it. Say, "That's a fair concern. Can I show you what we've seen work in similar situations?" You're acknowledging their point has merit before you offer an alternative. In team disagreements, try, "I see your logic. Here's another angle to consider." You're not saying they're wrong, you're adding perspective. When someone's performance isn't working, start with what is working, then ask, "What would happen if we tried this instead?" You're building on their foundation, not tearing it down. There's this technique where you admit your mistakes first, immediately and emphatically. It completely disarms the other person. They were ready to defend themselves, and suddenly there's nothing to defend against. In fact, now they want to make you feel better about your mistake. This is especially critical in remote work. Email disagreements escalate 10 times faster than in-person conversations because tone gets lost. Someone reads your correction as harsh even when you meant it constructively. So, in emails, always acknowledge their point first. You raised an important consideration about timeline. Let me add what we're seeing on the technical side. Here's the trap most people fall into. They use "but" after praise. Great work, but you need to fix these three things. That "but" erases everything before it. Replace it with "and." Great work, and if you add this element, it'll be even stronger. Same feedback, completely different emotional impact. Next time someone's wrong, don't correct them. Ask, "Help me understand your thinking on this." Let them walk through their logic out loud. Half the time, they'll spot the flaw themselves, and when they do, they'll feel smart for catching it instead of defensive about being corrected. Rule 1. Make people feel important without faking it. Everyone craves importance like they crave food. It's not optional, it's not shallow, it's a fundamental human need. The problem is most people try to meet this need with generic praise that sounds completely insincere. "Great job, team." "Nice work on that project." It means nothing because it's not specific. Carnegie meant sincere appreciation, not flattery, not manipulation, actual recognition of real contributions. And there's a simple way to make this real. Use someone's name. When you use someone's name in an email, in a Slack message, on a video call, they feel seen. It's a small thing that makes a massive difference. Here's how this works in modern teams. In remote work, call out specific contributions in public channels. Not "great meeting, everyone." Instead, Sarah's analysis on slide 7 completely changed how I'm thinking about this problem. You just made Sarah feel important, and everyone else sees that you notice details. With clients, remember something specific from your last conversation and reference it. Not "how's business," but "how did that product launch you mentioned last month turn out?" You're showing their words mattered enough for you to remember. In networking, follow up on something specific they said. Most people send the same generic "great to meet you" message to everyone. You send "your point about supply chain challenges in the Midwest" really stuck with me. I came across this article that relates to what you mentioned. You just stood out from 50 other contacts. Carnegie tells this story about a stockbroker named William Steinhardt. Guy was a notorious grouch, rarely smiled, made everyone around him miserable. He decided to try an experiment. Just start smiling more. Smiled at his wife in the morning, smiled at the doorman, smiled at the subway cashier, smiled at traders on the floor. What happened? People started smiling back. Within 2 months, he said there was more happiness in his home than in the entire previous year. At work, complaints were easier to handle, and he was making more money. Why does this work? People mirror the importance you give them. When you make someone feel valued, they become more engaged, more responsive, more helpful. It's not manipulation. It's recognizing something real about them and reflecting it back. The common mistake is only praising results. "Great quarter, hit your numbers." That's fine, but it doesn't build loyalty. Recognize effort and growth too. I noticed how you handled that difficult client conversation last week. The way you stayed calm when they got frustrated, that's real skill. When you delegate tasks, explain why you chose this specific person. "I'm giving you this project because your attention to detail on the last one was exceptional." You're not just assigning work, you're showing you value their unique strengths. In performance reviews, cite specific moments when their work mattered. Not just, "you did well this year." Instead, in March, when the client was about to walk, your quick thinking on that proposal saved the account. That was a turning point. Here's your quick win for today. Send one message recognizing someone's specific contribution they probably think went unnoticed. The junior person who caught a mistake in your presentation. The colleague who always responds quickly to urgent requests. The client who gave you honest feedback that improved your product. Make them feel important by showing you noticed something specific they did. Small, consistent recognition builds loyalty faster than big annual gestures. It compounds over time. If you're interested in a book summary of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, click on the next video. Subscribe for more book summaries that change how you think and act.